What happens when a nation's greatest baseball team, stacked with the best Japanese talent in history, loses before the semi-finals for the very first time? What happens to the man who was standing in the dugout when it all fell apart? And what does the most famous baseball player alive say when the dream he fought for ends with a pop-up behind second base? On the night of March 14, 2026, in Miami, Florida, Japan's Samurai Japan, the defending World Baseball Classic champions, the team that had steamrolled 4 opponents in Tokyo without breaking a sweat, walked off a baseball field for the last time in this tournament. They had just lost 8-5 to Venezuela. They had blown a 3-run lead. And they had made history in the worst possible way. For the first time in the history of the World Baseball Classic, Japan failed to reach the semi-finals. What happened next, in the clubhouse, at the team hotel, and on social media, is a story about responsibility, heartbreak, dignity, and the weight of carrying an entire nation's baseball pride on your shoulders. This is that story. To understand the weight of what happened on March 14, you first need to understand the expectation. Japan entered the 2026 World Baseball Classic as arguably the most talented international baseball roster ever assembled. Their lineup included Shohei Ohtani, the reigning National League MVP, the man who had just helped the Los Angeles Dodgers win back-to-back World Series titles. It included Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the reigning World Series MVP, slated to start the quarterfinal. It included Munetaka Murakami, who had broken Sadaharu Oh's single-season home run record. It included Seiya Suzuki, Masataka Yoshida, Kazuma Okamoto, 8 major league players in total on a single national team roster. They were not just the defending champions. They were the overwhelming favorites. In Pool C at the Tokyo Dome, they looked exactly like what everyone expected. 4 games. 4 wins. Taiwan, South Korea, Australia, the Czech Republic, none of them came close. Japan outscored their opponents 34-9 across pool play. The offense was firing. The pitching was dominant. Ohtani was playing with the quiet intensity that makes him terrifying to face. Everything was pointing in one direction. Then they flew to Miami for the quarterfinals. And Venezuela was waiting. What happened on the night of March 14 will be studied and debated in Japanese baseball circles for years. Japan struck first, and struck hard. Ohtani led off the bottom of the first inning and hit a home run. Shota Morishita added another. Japan built a 5-2 lead and it felt, to everyone watching, like the script was being followed exactly as written. Then Ibata made a pitching change that changed everything. In the 5th inning, with the lead intact and Yoshinobu Yamamoto throwing well, manager Hirokazu Ibata pulled his ace and brought in left-hander Chihiro Sumida. Venezuela's lineup, loaded with powerful right-handed hitters, immediately recognized the opportunity. Wilyer Abreu hit a go-ahead 3-run home run in the 6th inning. Venezuela scored 4 unanswered runs and took the lead. An uncharacteristic error by Japan in the 8th inning gave Venezuela their 8th run. The 5-2 lead became an 8-5 loss. And in the 9th inning, with Japan's season on the line, Shohei Ohtani, the man who had struck out Mike Trout to end the 2023 WBC, popped out to second base. Game over. Tournament over. History made, in the cruelest possible way. In the immediate aftermath of the loss, manager Hirokazu Ibata walked to the post-game press conference in Miami looking like a man who had already made a decision but wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. He was measured. He was composed. He did not fall apart in front of the cameras, though anyone watching closely could see the weight he was carrying in every word he chose. "I don't think there was anything wrong with our pitchers this time," Ibata told reporters after the loss, through an interpreter. "Some of them were here 3 years ago as well." He acknowledged that the rest of the world was catching up to Japan, that the talent gap which had made Japan so dominant in international baseball for nearly 2 decades was narrowing, making every tournament more dangerous than the last. "Of course I would have wanted Ohtani to play," he said, referring to the decision to limit Ohtani to designated hitter duties to protect his arm ahead of the Dodgers season. But I didn't have a choice. He left the podium without announcing what he had already decided. It was only the following morning, speaking at the team hotel in Miami, away from the television cameras and the bright lights of the press conference room, that Ibata said the words that would send shockwaves through Japanese baseball. Results are everything. 4 words. Delivered quietly, without drama. Reported by Japan's Sports Hochi newspaper, and immediately picked up by every major outlet in the country and around the world. Although we lost this time, I hope Japan will grow stronger and win next time. Hirokazu Ibata, 50 years old, the man who had been hired in October 2023 to succeed the legendary Hideki Kuriyama as manager of Samurai Japan, who had taken the national team through the 2023 Asia Professional Baseball Championship, the 2024 Premier 12, and now the 2026 WBC, announced his resignation. He did not blame the players. He did not point to injuries, or the absence of Roki Sasaki and Kodai Senga who had both opted out, or the groin injury that had taken Yuki Matsui out of the tournament. He took the result. He accepted it completely. And he stepped down. In Japan, where the concept of taking personal responsibility for collective failure carries enormous cultural weight, the manner of Ibata's resignation was received with a complicated mixture of emotions. Anger from fans who wanted accountability. Sadness from those who had watched him work. And from many, a deep respect for the simplicity and dignity of how he handled the worst moment of his managerial career. Results are everything. No excuses. No press conference tears. No lengthy explanation. Just those 4 words, and a bow. While Ibata was processing his resignation at the team hotel, Shohei Ohtani was processing something of his own. He had traded his pinstriped Samurai Japan uniform for a dark jacket and white shirt by the time he emerged from the clubhouse after the loss. A pair of headphones hung from his neck. He spoke to reporters with the same measured calm he always carries, but the words he chose were raw in a way that Ohtani rarely allows himself to be in public. There were a lot of ways we could have won the game, Ohtani said. It comes down to my own lack of ability. He paused. And then he said something that captured exactly what this tournament meant to him, and what its ending felt like. When your goal is to win it all, then anything short of a championship ends up feeling like a failure, in a sense. I think that's just the reality of it. He had gone 1 for that night with 2 strikeouts and the final pop-out that ended Japan's tournament. He had hit .462 across 4 WBC games with 3 home runs and 7 RBIs, a genuinely outstanding tournament. And yet, standing in the Miami clubhouse in a dark jacket with headphones around his neck, Ohtani called it his own lack of ability. That is who he is. That is the standard he holds himself to. But it was what came after, days later, back in Los Angeles, that truly moved people around the world. Ohtani posted a message on Instagram in Japanese that was translated and shared globally within hours. Read it carefully, because every sentence matters. Dear fans, thank you very much for your support. Your cheers gave us a push in the back every day. We didn't get the results we wanted, and I'm pained by my shortcomings. To the players, manager, coaches, and the staffers who supported the team, it was a short time, but I'm grateful from the bottom of my heart that I was able to experience baseball with you as a representative of Japan. Additionally, I want to express my gratitude to the players from the countries we played starting in the first round. And then, the final line, a line of grace that not every competitor could manage after a painful elimination. Congratulations to Venezuela for winning. No bitterness. No blame. No excuses. A message of gratitude to his fans, his teammates, his coaches, his opponents. A message that acknowledged pain honestly. I'm pained by my shortcomings, without deflecting or minimizing it. Overseas fans who read that message did not need it translated to understand what it meant. The emotional truth of it crossed every language barrier. The reaction to Japan's elimination, and to Ibata's resignation and Ohtani's Instagram message, was immediate and global in a way that only Samurai Japan can generate. In Japan, the response began before the final out was even recorded. Social media filled with disbelief, grief, and then anger. How had a team this talented lost this early? How had a 3-run lead been surrendered? Why was the pitching change made when it was? The debates were fierce and they were everywhere. But underneath the anger was something deeper, a national sadness that went beyond baseball results. Japan has dominated the World Baseball Classic since its inception. 3 championships. Never eliminated before the semifinals. The tournament had become, for Japanese fans, a reliable source of national pride in a sport they love with a particular intensity. The quarter-final loss to Venezuela didn't just end a tournament. It ended a streak, a tradition, an assumption. Overnight, the clip of Ibata's "results are everything" statement spread across every platform. In Japan, the reaction to his resignation was divided. Many fans were angry that he had made the pitching change that cost Japan the game. But many others, including former players, coaches, and journalists, acknowledged the dignity with which he accepted responsibility. In Japanese baseball culture, that matters enormously. Overseas reactions carried their own particular energy. American baseball fans, who had watched Japan dominate international play for 2 decades, responded with genuine surprise and a degree of respect for Venezuela's upset. The reaction to Ohtani's Instagram post was deeply emotional, thousands of comments from American fans who had never seen Ohtani express vulnerability this openly in public. He blamed himself even though he hit 3 home runs in the tournament. One widely shared comment read, "That's class." South Korean fans, whose national team had been beaten by Japan in pool play, watched the quarter-final result with the complicated emotions of a rival that respects its opponent while also quietly enjoying the unexpected turn. But the reaction to Ohtani's message transcended rivalry. His graceful acknowledgement of shortcomings resonated with Korean baseball fans who understand, deeply, what it means to carry national pride into a tournament and come home without the result you wanted. Venezuelan fans celebrated one of the greatest upsets in their baseball history, a win over the defending champions, on a night when Ohtani hit a leadoff home run and Ronald Acuña Jr. answered with one of his own, producing the first leadoff home run exchange in WBC history. The appreciation for that historic moment crossed all national boundaries. And across Latin American baseball communities, the game was instantly recognized as one of the most dramatic in WBC history. A 3-run lead surrendered. A legendary team eliminated. A great player making the final out. The kind of story that baseball tells better than any other sport. Japan now enters a period of genuine uncertainty that it has not experienced in international baseball for a very long time. The manager's chair is empty. Ibata's resignation was immediate and clean, no negotiation, no discussion of the future. He took the result and stepped away, leaving the Japan Baseball Association with the task of finding a new leader before the next major international tournament. The candidate conversation has already begun in Japan. Names of prominent NPB managers and former professional players are being mentioned. The challenge for whoever takes the job is significant, not just tactically, but in terms of managing the integration of MLB players whose teams increasingly have concerns about international tournament workloads. The Ohtani question is the most pressing. He played the 2026 WBC exclusively as a designated hitter, with the Dodgers unwilling to let him pitch in a tournament outside the regular season. That limitation, understandable from the Dodgers' perspective, painful from Japan's, was felt throughout the tournament. The manager who told reporters, "Of course I would have wanted him to play, but I didn't have a choice," understood the bind. Whoever comes next will face the same bind. Roki Sasaki and Kodai Senga both opted out of the 2026 WBC entirely. Several other key contributors were lost to injuries. The gap between Japan's best possible roster and the roster that actually took the field in Miami was real, and it will remain a structural challenge for the national team program going forward. And then there is the broader question that Ibata himself identified in his post-game press conference: the rest of the world is catching up. Venezuela's win was not a fluke. It was the product of a generation of Venezuelan players who have developed through MLB organizations, played at the highest level, and arrived at the WBC with the preparation, the talent, and the belief to beat anyone in the world. The same is true of the Dominican Republic. The same is increasingly true of other nations whose baseball programs have invested heavily in player development. Japan's dominance was never going to last forever. The 2026 WBC may mark the moment when that dominance formally ended. In the days following Japan's elimination, as Ohtani returned to Los Angeles Dodgers spring training and prepared for the regular season, he was asked the question that every Japanese baseball fan wanted answered. Would he represent Japan again? His answer was careful, honest, and ultimately hopeful. As for international games, I want another shot at it, Ohtani said, whether you call it revenge or simply a new challenge. I don't know yet in what form I'll get the chance to represent Japan again, or whether I'll be selected next time, but I want to refocus and be ready for the next opportunity. He also addressed something more difficult: the online criticism and abuse directed at Japan's players following the elimination. In Japanese social media culture, the pressure on national team players after a loss can be intense and sometimes deeply personal. Ohtani's response to this was one of the most thoughtful things he said in the entire aftermath. "Personally, I don't really mind being told that sort of thing," he said, referring to criticism of his performance. "However, when it comes to denying someone's character, that kind of stuff, it's completely unrelated to baseball, so I do think it's tough. As a pro, when the results are bad, I have the mindset to accept whatever is said about me personally. But not every player is necessarily that way, and treating people with consideration is something that doesn't change no matter where you are." A superstar defending his teammates. Taking criticism aimed at himself while shielding those around him from attacks he considers unfair. It was a reminder that Ohtani's greatness has never been only about what he does with a bat or a ball. What should we take from Japan's 2026 World Baseball Classic? Not just the scoreline. Not just the pitching change that will be debated for years. Not just the statistics, impressive as they were, from a tournament that ended earlier than anyone expected. We should take the image of Hirokazu Ibata, 50 years old, standing at a hotel in Miami the morning after the worst result in Japanese baseball history, and saying 4 words: "Results are everything." No excuses. No blame. No tears in front of cameras. Just a man accepting responsibility for something that broke his heart, and stepping aside with dignity. We should take Ohtani's Instagram message. The man who hit 3 home runs and 7 RBIs in 4 games, who did everything a designated hitter could possibly do, writing, "I'm pained by my shortcomings," and meaning it. We should take the image of Japan's players, after the final out, lining up to bow toward the fans who had traveled from Japan to watch them in Miami. A gesture of gratitude in a moment of grief. And we should take Ohtani's promise: "I want another shot at it." Japan will be back. With new leadership, with hard lessons learned, with the hunger that only comes from experiencing a failure of this magnitude for the first time. The era of Hirokazu Ibata is over. The search for what comes next has already begun. And somewhere in Los Angeles, a man with headphones around his neck and a dark jacket and a pop-out behind second base burned into his memory is already thinking about how to make sure it ends differently next time. Results are everything. Ibata said it. Ohtani heard it. And Japan will not forget it.